introduction here about the church. I don't know why. I was just thinking about this for a couple of days this week. We, the church, are not unlike, because the direction America is going, away from Christianity, away from kind of its moorings, its foundations. Now look, when I say that, I'm not saying that everybody who started in America was a God-fearing Christian. Okay? I'm not saying that. I know there's some that weren't. But what I'm saying is a majority were. Okay? They were God-fearing men.
Amen.
And as we move further and further away from those foundations, we're going to get into deeper and darker waters that are scary. Because once you look at God and you say, I don't want you, be gone, that's when you're in trouble. You could probably tell me stories individually of your life when you said, God, I'm going to kind of go my own way on this. I'll talk to you soon. And eventually you'll come back, what? Humbled. Because His way is the best way. His path is the best path. He designed the world. He designed you and me. So when you remove God from the equation, you know you're in big trouble. Amen. Now America's moving in that direction, but think about it. Over the history since Abraham, okay, we're talking 4,000 years, God's people walking this earth, they have constantly been in and around nations that did not believe in Jehovah, did not believe in Yahweh, did not believe in the Lord our God. Okay? So it's nothing new. But I was thinking, how do we react to a culture that's moving away from God? What do we do as Christians? Okay? And here's what you don't do. You don't grab, see this big Bible right here? You don't grab this, which is really heavy, and walk up to people and smack them over the head with it. What's wrong with you? Why are you doing this? Why are you going in this direction? Why are you making these really bad choices? That doesn't work. Everybody with me?
Right.
But I thought what we could do is we could take a clue from the Apostle Peter. He wrote 2 letters in the New Testament. He's all throughout the Gospels as well. He was the leader of the first church. And listen to his words, okay? Listen to what he says. Now remember, they live in a Roman-occupied area, territory. Okay? And listen, when you live under Roman occupation, you listen to what Rome says, or else you get, what? Crushed. They were a mighty power, one of the greatest empires in the history of the world, and they crushed their enemies. Now listen to what Peter says. In your hearts honor Christ the Lord as holy, always being prepared to do what? Make a defense to anyone who asks about the hope that lies within you. Okay, so think about that. The world's getting darker, and as it gets darker, what happens to Christians? Their lights get brighter. Our light should be getting brighter. Not by boycotting and not by shaking our angry fist at the powers that be that are making these bad decisions. I don't think that's the direction. I think the direction is you walk around with something in you that they don't have. We have hope. Is this world desperate for hope? They're looking for it in anything they can get their hands on, and they'll never find it. Because anything apart from God is hopeless. Okay. And he says, but do this with gentleness and respect. Do it with gentleness and respect. So when the person approaches you and they see the hope in you and they say something to you, they go, you know, there's something a little bit different about you. I'm not exactly sure what it is. And you talk to them. And it was funny, the other day I had to go to Brandon Regional and get my blood work done. And the lady is taking forever on the computer. And I mean forever. And I'm sitting there, outwardly looking okay, and really like, oh my gosh, you know how many things I got to do? And she goes, thank you for being so patient. I said, if you only knew, lady, I'm not that patient. And we started talking, we had a conversation, and she asked me what I did, and I said, as a pastor, and she goes, no wonder you're patient. I'm like, well, sometimes. I got 3 little kids. That definitely will make you patient. So I think that's how we do it. I think that's what I want to propose to us, is that as the world gets darker, one, you don't be surprised. If a government, if a nation, if the leaders, the people that we look up to, a lot of Americans look up to, move down the path away from God, we should not be surprised at the suffering this nation is going through, okay? We should not be surprised at all. We should have hope in our hearts, because our hope's not set on America. Where's our hope set? On God. And Him alone. Him alone. Okay. We got a lot to do, and now we got, oh my goodness, we got to get going. Y'all ready? Listen to me. 1 Kings 19. 1 Kings 19. It's going to be up on the screen, right? Yeah? Good. 1 Kings 19, starting with verse 1. I love this story, by the way. This is a beautiful story. Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done. What had Elijah just done in 1 Kings 18? He went up to Mount Carmel. Thank you, Carmel. And what did he do? He did a spectacular thing. He defeated all the prophets of Baal, 450 of them, and all the prophets of Asherah, 400 of them. He defeated them all. And listen, Elijah was one bad dude, let me tell you. Not only was he a prophet of God, I should say the prophet, the main prophet of God, but he also, after he defeated, the fire comes down, God consumes everything, and the people cry out, "The Lord is our God," which was just basic lip service, by the way. What does he say? He says, "Take these prophets down to the brook." And guess what he does to the prophets? Kills them. This guy is a bad dude. I like Elijah, man. He's fired up. He's fired up about Jesus, isn't he? He's excited about the Lord. And he does not like anyone who leads the people of God away from God. Seriously. So I want to kind of get a little fired up like Elijah gets fired up. Okay, forgive me. All right, here we go. Then Jezebel. You remember Jezebel? Ahab is the king. Jezebel is the queen. And she is one bad queen. I'm talking seriously bad news. Guess what she tells the prophet of the living God? Okay? Listen to this. She sends a messenger to him. This is from the queen, Elijah. "So may the gods do to me, and more also, if I do not make your life as the life of one of them by this time tomorrow." You know how you kill those prophets? I'm coming after you, Elijah. I'm going to kill you next. That's what Jezebel says. Woo! Scary. Scary queen. Look, Ahab's not too good either, but Jezebel, she was tough. Then he was afraid, and he arose and ran for his life and came to Beersheba, which belongs to Judah, and left his servant there. But he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness and came and sat down under a broom tree. And he asked that he might die, saying, "It is enough now, O Lord. Take away my life, for I am no better than my fathers." And he lay down and he slept under a broom tree. And behold, the angel of the Lord touched him and said to him, "Arise, eat." And he looked, and behold, there was at his head a cake baked on hot stones and a jar of water. And he ate and he drank and he lay down again. And the angel of the Lord came again a second time and touched him. "Elijah, arise, eat, for the journey is too great for you." And he arose and he ate and he drank and went in the strength of that food for 40 days and 40 nights to Horeb, the mount of God. There he came to a cave and he lodged in it. And behold, the word of the Lord came to him. And he said to him, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" And he said, "I have been very jealous for the Lord, God of hosts. The people of Israel have forsaken your covenant, thrown down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword. And I, even I only, am left and seek my life to take it away." And he said, "Go out, stand on the mount." before the Lord. And behold, the Lord passed by, and a great and strong wind tore the mountains and broke pieces and rocks before the Lord. The Lord was not in the wind. And after the wind, an earthquake. But the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, a fire. The Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire, the sound of a low whisper. When Elijah heard it, he wrapped his face in his cloak and went out and stood at the entrance of the cave. And behold, there came a voice to him and said, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" He said, "I've been very jealous for the Lord, the God of hosts, for the people of Israel have forsaken your covenant, thrown down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword. And I, even only I, am left. And they seek my life to take it away." The Lord said to him, "Go, return on your way to the wilderness of Damascus. And when you arrive, you shall anoint Hazael to be king over Syria. And Jehu, the son of Nimshi, you shall anoint him to be king over Israel. And Elisha, the son of Jacob, and Abel Maholah, you shall anoint to be prophet in your place. And the one who escapes from the sword of Hazael shall Jehu put to death. The one who escapes from the sword of Jehu shall Elisha put to death. Yet I will leave 7,000 in Israel, all the knees that have not bowed to Baal, and every mouth that has not kissed him." Wow. This is an incredible story, and I want to look at it with you guys. I'm sure you've read it a bunch of times, but I want to point out a couple of key things that we see with Elijah here. Now, first of all, Elijah is terribly confused. Okay? He had just done something spectacular, and he just thought, wow, maybe the people of God, maybe the leadership, maybe the king and the queen, Ahab and Jezebel, maybe they will turn now back to God and away from the idols. So he runs to the capital of Samaria at the time, Jezreel. But guess what he finds out? No protesters in the street. Nobody saying, "Hey, we need to get back to the Lord." Leadership didn't even faze the leadership. What happened on Mount Carmel? Just the opposite. As soon as Ahab returns, because he was there on the mountain, he tells Jezebel what happened. She says, "Bring my messenger to me right now. This is what you go tell Elijah." So here he is confused, scared, he's running for his life, unsure what God is doing. Verse 3 says that he's scared. And so God is going to use this entire episode to show Elijah who he really is. Show us who he really is. So let's unpack it together. I want to just bring up three things that I think are really important for us to see. Number one is this. The first thing God does for Elijah is this. He cooks. He cooks for Elijah. God knows, because God made us, that we are physical beings. We live in a physical world. So he comes and he touches him. The manifestation of an angel, God is, touches him. Arise, Elijah, and eat. You're exhausted. You're tired. You're worn out. You're spent. He gave everything he could on that mountain, thinking that this spectacular work of God would bring the people to repentance, and it didn't work. So he is frustrated. Notice he leaves his servant in verse 4. You know what that meant? If you had a servant, you were either rich or you were a prophet. And he was the head prophet of Israel at the time. And he tells his servant, leave. You know what he's saying? I quit the ministry. I'm done. All the things I'm trying to do in my ministry for the Lord and the good of these people is not working. So I'm finished. I'm done. He walks away. That's what happened. But God knows that in the midst of all of that, in the midst of his depression and his despondency, he needs something physical. He needs rest. He needs a good meal. Listen to me. If you find yourself depressed and despondent in this life, and listen, we're all going to run into that sooner or later, aren't we? Sometimes, not all the time, It's not a spiritual matter. It's a physical matter. Amen? And sometimes what you need to do is, now listen, I didn't say this to Lee Ellison last night, but he's been talking to me about all the things he's doing. He's probably doing a little too much right now. And so what I told him last night was, I said, Lee Ellison, rest. Okay? Take some time off. Get some rest. Go seek the Lord. Just relax a little bit. You're doing too much, dude. Okay. Sometimes it's just physical. Sometimes you just need to take a couple days, go to the beach, go walk up and down the beach.
Amen.
Breathe in the air, like you think, get a good meal, and sleep in the next day. What are you talking about? Okay. Now, if you sleep in all the time, then you need to do the opposite. Okay. But listen, sometimes it's a physical thing. And God is so wonderful in His wisdom. He knows that. He knows His servant is worn flat out. So He comes to him and says, take, eat. Let me cook for you. You know, when God cooks you some food, guess what? It's good eating, right? Am I right? Is that the best cake he'd ever eaten in his life? Woo! Blows away. Pineapple upside down cake, doesn't it? Oh, that's good. Actually, I don't even know if that's good because I don't like sweets. This is where God starts with Elijah. And listen, He knows what Elijah needs. Doesn't He? So when you go to Him in your despondency, in your depression, in your trial, in your tribulation, He knows what you need individually. And He meets you at the point of your need. He meets you there. Isn't that great? That's our God. I love it. I just love how God is so wise beyond what we can think or understand. Here's the second thing He does. And I love this. He asks Elijah questions. Now, is a question that God asks someone ever for God? Does He need information? No, it's always for the person that is being asked by God. Let them think through it. This is the second thing He does. He listens to Elijah. Did you guys understand that? God is listening to His servant, to His creation. How great is our God? If I'm God, I'm not listening a whole lot. I'm busy. I'm doing things. Listen, I don't listen very well anyway. Okay, I think it's ADD or whatever. But if I'm looking at you and you're talking to me and you go over a minute or you go over 45 seconds, I won't remember what you just said. That's why I have to either write it down or I call Michael. At least, please put this down. Okay, I don't know what it is. I got to work better on my listening skills. But I love that God takes time. He condescends. He gets down on Elijah's level and He just talks. Now listen, I don't know what you think about Christian counseling. All I know is this, first-hand experience, that a counselor helped me walk through some troubled waters. Okay? It's nothing magical. It's nothing crazy. It's just someone sitting down long enough to hear your story, to hear pain you're going through, to walk with you through it. Isn't it nice when someone sits with you and listens for a little while? When you're in the deepest, darkest valleys? It's nice to have someone who's a good listener. It's important to have those people in your life. Listen, if the only Christian relationships you got are surface level, hey, how you doing? Oh, really good. Oh, that's awesome. Wow, high five. Yeah, all right. See you next week. Amen. Bye. If that's all you're doing, you're in trouble. Because God created the body of Christ to work together, to love one another, to sacrifice one another, to meet each other at the point of our need, to help one another, to lift each other up, to encourage one another, to spur one another to love and good deeds. And the list goes on and on and on. That's our duty as a church. That is our calling as the people of God. And part of that calling is someone's going through trouble, someone's going through difficulty. We first of all, we recognize it. Hey, you just seem a little off. Everything okay? Oh, I had a bad burrito yesterday. Okay, good. That's fine. If that's the case, that's okay. bad iguana I had down in Honduras. I don't know. It's just, all right, Jose, I believe you. That's cool. I still want to eat some, but sometimes it's deeper, isn't it? Sometimes it's more than that. Sometimes they're having a hard time in their marriage. Sometimes, they lost their job. Whatever it may be. Sometimes they have a heart attack. Leelson, how you doing? Oh, great. I had a heart attack yesterday. Good. No, man, we dove down last night, man. We talked about some good stuff. So we need one another, and man, to think that God, for a moment, is listening to us the way that He does here with Elijah, it's just blowing me away that He could take time out for me. But that's who He is. He's near to the what? To the broken-hearted. He loves to listen to His people. God, I'm despondent. I'm depressed. I'm struggling here. I need you, Jesus. Okay, I'm here. Let's talk. That's His reaction. Do we serve a great God? Now listen, I have a dream. I'm going to let you in on one of my dreams, one of my visions for this church. I got a lot of them, but I'm just going to let you know one. Okay? And you see the Civic Center over there? Here's what I envision happening. They sell that Civic Center. Somehow we stumble into some cash, and a lot of it, we buy it, and we turn that into a Christian counseling center. Amen. What do you think about that? How cool would that be? Amen. And people from all over can come to our Christian counseling center at a minimum cost and get help. I think that's an amen in the form of a sneeze. Amen. That's one of my dreams. I got another really good dream that I've only let a few people know about. I'll tell you about that later. Carmel, you know what I'm talking about. Where's Terry? She's my other helper for my next dream. Okay. Now listen, here's the third thing. The third thing that God has got to deal with. Now listen, we are physical, psychological, relational, and spiritual beings, are we not? Okay? We're physical, psychological, and really that's just a big word for the soul. Okay? It means soul care. This might be what we call the Christian Counseling Center, soul care. I like that. We're relational. We were not made to do life by ourselves. We weren't made for that. We were made to be interdependent on one another as human beings and especially as Christians. Amen? But we're also spiritual. Here's the third thing God does. God knows that Elijah needs his physical needs met. He's exhausted. He needs a good meal. He needs to take a rest. He also knows that he needs someone to listen to him, to relate to him, to have a conversation with him, get out his stuff. But he also knows he needs something even more important than all those. That is a word from the Lord. A word from God. That's what he needed more than anything else. You ever been really down? You ever been really distraught? And just hardship? You're walking through it. You're walking through the real suffering of life. And you get a word from God. And it just what? What does it do to your soul? What does it do to your heart? It encourages you, doesn't it? It fills you with hope and joy. You can't explain it. You can't walk up to some person who's not a Christian and explain what's happening to you. But if you walk up to a Christian and look them in the eye, they've lived long enough and suffered long enough, they're going to wink at you and go, same thing for me. A word from God. It's like a soothing balm for the soul. Listen to Psalm 59:16. You are my fortress, my refuge in times of trouble. Now, I'll be honest with you. When I walk into trouble finds me, or I find it, and I'm going through a deep time in life, I usually try to figure things out with my mind, which is okay. And I try to plan and figure things out, okay? But my first knee-jerk response should always be, get down on my knees before the throne of grace and cry out to God. God, I'm going through X, Y, Z. I need you. Give me a word to sustain me through this trial, through this suffering. You remember when Jesus gets baptized in Matthew chapter 3? What happens right after he gets baptized? He is led into the desert, into the wilderness by the Spirit of God. For how long? 40 days. No food, no water, nobody else. And right at the end, he is tempted by the enemy. At his weakest moment. But guess what he heard before he went into that wilderness? Guess what he heard when he came up out of those waters? This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. He got a word from the Father, and right after that was marched into the wilderness to be tempted. And you know what kept him strong in those moments? You know what kept him true? It's that word. This is my Son, in whom I'm well pleased. It was an identity thing. It was so rich and so powerful, it buoyed him. It kept him afloat in the midst of trial. The trial. Probably the greatest trial and temptation ever in the history of the world. And he was saved by, oh my goodness. Okay. God decides to humble Elijah. Now listen, he goes to Mount Horeb, which is the mountain of God. You know the other name for Mount Horeb? Mount Sinai. That's where he goes. And it says he goes into a cave. The Hebrew there is really cleft. And do you remember a couple centuries before? Moses is there. What does Moses do when he meets with the Lord? He asks to do what? See him. Show me your glory. And God says, sorry. But if you saw me in all my glory, you would literally evaporate. You would melt in the presence of my holiness. Because sin can't be in the presence of the living God. But what does he do? Go, get in this cleft, and that will shield you from most of it. And he passes by. And then Moses catches a glimpse of God's backside. Just a little touch of his glory. Remember that? A lot of commentators think that when Elijah went to Mount Sinai, he ended up in the same cleft where Moses was. Isn't that beautiful? I love it. It's so rich. Oh my gosh, I wanted to talk so much about a lot of this, but we're running out of time. Now listen. He's there. And God first comes in the form of what? A hurricane. Floridians, we know all about hurricanes. Okay? Been through a couple of them, right? A hurricane literally shows up. But God is what? Not in the hurricane. And then what comes? Earthquake. Big earthquake. Huge. Elijah's freaking out. But God's not what? Not in it. And then this giant fire comes. And he's probably like, whoa, Jack, that's hot. But what? God is not in the fire. Now, does God manifest himself in fire? You remember Moses? What did he see? Now listen, I used to think that bush was like the bush out in front of my house. Kind of bush. Hey, look, it's on fire. That's not very significant. That's not really going to blow you away, is it? I think more it was a burning building. It was huge. And he sees this burning bush, and from there, God speaks. What about on Mount Sinai when God would come down? I love the picture there. Here's Moses praying. God comes down to the mountain. And then what happens with the people of God on the bottom? They experience a what? Earthquake. So he does manifest himself in those ways. But you know what? In this instance, he came with what? A low whisper. What does the King James says? A still, small voice. Why did he speak to Elijah that way? Because he knew what Elijah needed. Moses did not need a still small voice. Moses needed a what? A fire. The people of God, when they're down on the mountain, down below the mountain, did not need a still small voice. They needed to know God was a God of holiness and righteousness. And he doesn't put up with sin. And so they got an earthquake. But how beautiful is our God? He knows what you need when you need it. Isn't that great? Now listen. I've got to close here. Elijah is despondent and depressed for two reasons. One, he thought what he did on Mount Carmel was going to do a really cool thing to the people of God, and it didn't. And God says to him, look, you're putting me in a box. I don't fit in boxes. There's not a box large enough for me to go into. Elijah, you got that? You thought you had it all figured out. You thought I would meet, people would come to repentance and all that. You don't put me in a box. If you ever have God in a box, here's what you do. You take the biggest hammer you got and do what? Destroy the box. That's what Elijah's hearing from God. I am free to do whatever I will to do, is what God is saying to Elijah. Oh, I got a plan. And he finishes the plan at the end of this chapter. We don't have time to get into it, but I got a plan. My plan's going to blow you away. You'll be part of it for a little while, but you're going to have to hand the mantle off to Elisha. And here's the other thing. What does Elijah think? He says, I'm the only one left. I love that. I'm the only one left, God. I'm the only one who's faithful to you. And he goes, you might want to check your numbers there. There's still 7,000 in Israel that have not bowed the knee or kissed Baal. And here's what they would do. They would erect statues of these gods, and the people would come by and kiss the feet of the statues. There's 7,000 who have not bowed down and kissed the feet of Baal. So you're not alone, Jack. I mean, Elijah. Sorry, Jack. He needed to be humbled. You know what God is saying to Elijah? Listen, dude. What's Michael been talking about? I got this. Elijah, I got it, dude. You got some really good ideas. You got a lot of zeal for me. You're jealous. I mean, you're fired up about me. But listen, I got this. You just be faithful to what I've asked you to do. You're going to have a little tiny bit to play in the bigger picture here, but it's a small part to play. You and I, small parts to play. God, I want to do some big stuff. Well, if I will that, then it'll come to pass. If I don't, hang on. It's okay. You do your part. Amen? Amen. I really love it. So let's recap, and then we'll pray. God meets Elijah right where he is. He has physical needs. He has relational needs. He needs someone to talk to. He has a spiritual need. He needs to hear from God. And here's what I'm going to say to you. When you're down, when things are hard, and it's rough, and you're laying there, you're sitting right next to you're in a hospital bed maybe laying there, or you're sitting next to a loved one who's laying in the hospital bed. Listen, when you're in that position, here's what you do. You get a word from God. You go meet the Lord. Amen? That's what Elijah did. What a great story. I love that story. And how wonderful is our God. He's amazing. He's marvelous. He gives you what you need when you need it. So let's celebrate that. Let's pray. Father, I am greatly encouraged by the story of Elijah. Wow. Just as I read it over and over, and I looked at it closely, I just realized how wonderful you are to your people. And even when we're confused and we don't understand and we're driven to despair, despondency, and depression, you are still there, willing, able to meet with us, to love us, to encourage us. I mean, who has a God like that? We do. So thank you for this group of people today. Thank you for every heart in this room. My prayer for them is that they would come to you and know that you're a God who cares. Sometimes that's all we need to know is that you care, Lord. That you're near to the brokenhearted, that you love us deeply, and that you're a friend to us. You're our Father. You're a heavenly Father, and you care for each and every one of your children. We give you praise that is due your name for all of these many blessings.